Just curious if you've heard from the league and also what Dom's reaction today has been to sort of being such a public figure.
No, I haven't heard anything from the league. You know, Dom is as good as they get in this business, and I'm so thankful for him. You know, his nature, he's gonna always to try to diffuse situations, right? That's what he does. That's his job, and so. You know, obviously unfortunate yesterday, but, you know, I know it in Dom's heart. He truly was trying to diffuse the situation right there. I'm sad that it came to, you know, what it came to, that anybody got thrown out of the game.
Nick Sirianni, Eagles coach, talking about Big Dom DiSandro, the head of security, who interjected himself into a player altercation and took on the role of a game official. That's what game officials do, separate guys who are about to fight or who are in a fight. And, yeah, that's what Dom does. Well, there are a lot of peacekeepers out there, but if you're on the sideline of a game and it's not your job to be the one to diffuse the situation, stay out of the situation. You're not supposed to get in the middle of it. That's what disappoints me about Sirianni's comments, because it provides red meat for the Eagles fans who continue to insist that as the head of security, this was his job, to provide security during the game for Eagles players. That's not what you're there for. That's not what anyone on the sideline is there for. To get in the middle of two players, no. That is exclusively within the province of other players who are trying to do the right thing and diffuse the situation, or the officials. That's it. No one else should ever get in the middle of that. And it needs to be a clear, bright line. That's why I firmly believe the NFL is going to come down hard on the Eagles and DiSandro, because you cannot allow this precedent to be set. And it can't just be a finger wag. You better not do it again. This is a clear, bright line that he crossed. He should have known better. The Eagles should have known better. And the only way this gets rectified and deterred in the future is to impose a significant punishment on the Eagles and on Dom DiSandro, because he just crossed a line that he should have known he should never cross, Myles.
Well, absolutely, Mike. And look, I mean, I've worked for two separate NFL organizations. I've been around several different heads of security, and I can't imagine a scenario in which any of those folks would have interjected themselves on the field like that. It's inappropriate. And like you said, he should have known better. And so I understand like that there are sometimes impulses, but A, why are you that close to the action? Why are you talking to the officials like that as the head of security? And C, then why do you start to put your hands on a player? None of those things are appropriate for a head of security to do, right? So I just feel like this is a situation where you do need to kind of make an example out of the Eagles here, because this is not something that you can allow teams to start doing. Like, this is really inappropriate, especially because it ended up with a player being ejected for the actions that were in reaction to somebody else along the sideline. It just, that's not a good look for anybody.
And there's two officials right there, too. It's not like they needed him. And he wasn't thinking, I'm going to be the peacekeeper here. He's trying to protect his guy from Dre Greenlaw. And he thinks it's his job in that moment to go do it. That isn't what security chiefs do. No. A lot of what they do is fix problems. They're fixers. They know people in law enforcement. They get information about guys that may have been in trouble in the past or guys who may be in trouble now. It's not that you're out there on the field as an in-game bouncer. That's never the job. It's never been the job. It never will be the job. And Dom DiSandro may be a great guy. He's a paisan. I guess I should give him the Italian brotherhood benefit of the doubt, but I really don't care about that. But he seems like a big, lovable guy. He seems like a big human cheesesteak. I can see why they love him in Philly. But that doesn't excuse it, because look at the end result. And if you put that end result in the wrong brain, somebody who's very strategic and always looking for an edge, like a Bill Belichick, hey, I'll gladly trade guy who means absolutely nothing to what we're trying to do during a game for all-pro linebacker. If I can pull that off, I'll do it. And yeah, all you do is put him in the right place at the right time. And not that you could have planned what happened on Sunday, but it's just one of those things where all right, we see what can happen. So why would we do everything we can to get guys like that away from the action? You let them linger because maybe things happen in a way that you do get a strategic benefit and you're sacrificing your guy who never is going to be part of the game for somebody who was on the field.
Well, like I said, Mike, I go back to, like, why was he in the space exactly where he was? Or why was he in the white
Didn't need to be there
on the sideline in the first place? That's not necessarily the positioning of a director of security. Right? That's not necessarily where you should be. Why is he interacting with the officials in the first place where they're on the sideline there? That also doesn't really necessarily seem very appropriate. So I think it's not just the end result. It's kind of the process of, well, how did we get here? It's like, well, why is he there in the first place instead of further back where you usually see team security, other team officials that are there on the sideline. So and what I don't want to have happen is this become a thing of like, oh, well, why are there so many people on the sideline that don't need to be there? And then you start restricting folks who are doing their jobs the right way, right? Because that's a lot of times what happens. You get team personnel who, like photographers or videographers or whatever, and they're like, well, do those guys really need to be there? And it's like, well, kind of, yeah, because they're capturing the content that all of us love so much about the NFL, all the highlights, the sideline sound and all these different things. So that's why I hope that this stays rather the isolated incident that it is, and you figure out what the right punishment is for the Eagles, because there does need to be some sort of deterrent. And hopefully that's the end of it, because I don't want to see folks who are doing their jobs the right way be punished for something that they had absolutely nothing to do with.
Well, and you make a great point, because I've already heard from some people who say this is an example of there are too many people on the sideline and they need to get rid of some of them. And I asked somebody I've known for a long time about this, and apparently there's actually less now than there were prior to the pandemic. That the pandemic was an occasion to just kind of naturally trim the fat. They're down to about 70. 30 coaches, 10 trainers, 5 doctors, 5 security, operations equipment people, about 10. There's room for 10 others after that. Player development, GM, the owner's down there sometimes. It used to be a cap of 85. Now it's down to 70. But still, you see a lot of people milling around. And when the action gets into the bench area, there's just more obstacles for the players. And we saw the guy who had the horrible leg injury in New Orleans. Now, you're working the sticks. You can't work the sticks from 30 feet away from the sideline. So there's a certain element of danger inherent to that job. But, if you need to get out of the way quickly and you look both ways and there's a bunch of people there, that's the problem. The people who need to get out of the way quickly may have a harder time getting out of the way quickly if there's too many people on the sidelines. And the sidelines, like the area, and part of it is the size restrictions inherent to a stadium. Mm-hmm. Maybe everybody should be a lot farther back. The problem is you can only go back so far and you're pressed up against the wall. There isn't a lot of extra room down there between the sideline and the wall to fit all those people in. And I don't know what you can do about that other than, retrofit stadiums. And they ain't taking out those first few rows that are big ticket money makers. They're not going to have fewer seats to accommodate more space for all those people. So you just have to make sure the people who are down there understand, hey, Big Dom, and we all know guys like this, big, gregarious kind of a bully, does whatever he wants, goes wherever he wants. Nobody ever tells him no because he's so damn big. Sometimes you got to put your finger in that guy's face and say, back the F off, buddy.
Why? You just made a lot of assumptions about Big Dom right there. He's a bully. How do we know he's a bully?
You could just tell. You could just tell. I said big, gregarious guy. You could just tell he's a big, gregarious guy who goes where he wants, does what he wants, says what he wants, and everybody loves him, and he's not afraid to stick his nose in a place he shouldn't stick his nose. And my point is, the league office needs to tell him, hey, Big Dom, get your big butt out of here. Who said that? It was a call about John Madden. It was a radio or a TV call. The ref tells John Madden, get your fat butt out of here. So sometimes that's what you got to do. Yes, big butt. Get your big butt out of here. That was the line. Get your big butt out of here.
And not just one cheek, you got to get both those cheeks all the way back.
The entire butt.
Referees are trying to now say one butt cheek. That was a weird thing that happened over the weekend. But yeah, I hope that this, like I said, this is the isolated incident. we have a real good resolution to it and we are all able to move forward, because this is something that should absolutely never, ever, ever happen. And what I did like was that Sirianni apologized to Kyle Shanahan after the game. But I do think that you make a good point in that, you know, what he said on Monday is a little bit different in that it's kind of like, oh, you know, there's this thing and, you know, he's trying to do this and he's this and it's like, you're being more Philly in that way. And I get that, because for somebody who is from like kind of upstate New York, Nick Sirianni is like the most Philly person I think I've ever seen in my entire life. So Philly's going to embrace people in that way. And I get that. But there is a right and wrong. There is a line that should not be crossed. And that line, I think, was very clearly, obviously crossed there. So let's not do it again.
And I still don't understand why Drake Greenlaw got ejected. As Peter King explained it, he basically put shaving cream on Dom DiSandro's face. Like, he didn't punch him. He threw a punch, but it didn't land. And this is the same league office that tried to convince us back in week 3 or 4 when Trent Williams punched a Giants player in the face that he actually didn't punch him, and tried to convince us that Deshaun Watson was blameless when he blew a gasket on the sideline in the Steelers game week 2 Monday night and shoved an official out of the way so he could go back at whoever was. It's like, it just doesn't make any sense. But what needs to make sense is clear, bright line, thou shalt not approach players, touch players, step on the white line. It needs to be a clear and loud message sent. And there was already a memo sent earlier this year by the NFL about people interjecting themselves into altercations who weren't naturally part of them. A warning that there will be heightened penalties if it happens. So they've already provided the reminder this season. And this is the kind of thing where you just shouldn't need a reminder. This should not be a two sides issue. This shouldn't be well, he was just trying to keep the peace. See, that's what bothers me about the implication of Sirianni's statement. He's finding a way to kind of excuse this. It's not excusable by anyone. Right. And, you know, the Eagles fans are like, well, here's another reason. Here's another reason why. You hate the Eagles. That's what it is. Yeah, I'd say this about any team. Anybody who decides to interject themselves into the action between two players who should not be doing it needs to be told you can't do it, and the message needs to be sent to everyone else. The deterrent effect needs to be strong so no one else gets the idea that this is okay.
How could you hate the Eagles? You wore that nice Kelly green hoodie on air. I mean, how could you possibly hate them now? Aren't they like your favorite team aside from the Vikings now, since you wore their garb on national television?
One of the teams in Pennsylvania. It's one of the two teams in Pennsylvania. It's whichever one doesn't suck, frankly. So for now, the Eagles, because the Steelers, after losing to the Cardinals, fall into they suck category, and they have a chance to prove that wrong on Thursday night against the New England Patriots. God, good Lord. We got to watch that game in 2 nights. Good Lord. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.